Hello animators! Welcome back to Moho Gal. Listen, you're busy, I'm busy. I'm gonna get straight to the point. I thought I'd show you how I would tackle cleanup in Moho since I've had a few questions about that. Just gonna open a scene file and import my line test from another software. Something that I drew in TVPaint to show you an example of how I might clean this up and colour this. I'm going to import an image sequence. Image sequences tend to perform a little bit better than MOVs or MP4s. I've just got used to it that way. So I'm going to select all the renders from my TVPaint project and bring that in. Okay, cool. There we go. Just going to scale that to the size of my screen there. And just play through and check that. Great. Okay, that's the last frame. Just going to make sure that's the same. Okay, and then I'm going to label that line test. Nice quick short shot, a couple of seconds. But there is quite a lot going on, a lot of intersections. The first thing to note about cleanup in Moho, especially if you're using a line test from another software, is that we have to divorce ourselves from this idea that the line test sits on top and then underneath I have a coloured layer that I use the line test to colour my colours on, if that makes sense. We don't have that option, especially with bringing in a line test from another software, because Moho is not able to read anything. We don't have the ability to use the paint bucket tool in the same way that you might do in other softwares where it's able to read what's going on. We do not have that. So we have to think about it a little bit differently. I'm going to have to build vector shapes, and it's going to make my job easier and more fun if I learn a little bit of rigging at the same time. Now don't freak out at the word rig. I mean one bone at a time. We're going to be really simply, just easily. I want to show you that we want to be able to do this with as little work as possible. I'm looking for big shapes that don't change too much, and a really good contender for that would be the head and possibly the dress. This is Little Red Riding Hood about to stab the shit out of a wolf. So we've got some nice big shapes there that don't change too much in volume and shape. Basket, pigtails, etc, etc. Even the arms there's a bit of layering going on, but the arms could be quite easy as well. So I'm looking for easy. I'm going to start with the big easy stuff first, and then we'll do the little details. Now, what's a really good thing about Moho is that if this line test wasn't so great, if it was just a rough, I could clean up and colour at the same time. So I'm going to try and change the style of this. I'm just going to use my animation as a guide because I've already got this coloured anyway. So I'm going to use it as an opportunity to show you that if we didn't have this crisp, clean line, what could we do? So in Moho, we work in vector layers. I'm going to make a new vector layer for every single shape that I want to use in my cleanup process, just to make that easy for me so I can control them all at different rates. I'm going to use the default layer that Moho always creates, the vector layer. I'm going to call it head. I just double click to rename that, and I'm going to draw my first vector shape. Now then, this is the first important thing, is that I'm going to use vector shapes because I want as fewer points as possible. I want to do as little work as I can. So I'm going to make my own shapes, but these shapes must be closed and perform just the same way that if we were rigging or making a character, we're almost building rather than drawing. I don't want to draw frame by frame. I want to draw once and then see how little motion I can get away with in my cleanup process. So using the Add Points tool in the Draw menu in the tools, I'm going to do 4 points. I always have sharp corners set, so if you're panicking about the fact that that might not look the same, don't worry. I'm going to select the points now using the Select Points tool, and I'm going to use a shortcut Control M to just round those off. Using the Transform Points tool, I'm just going to make sure I have got enough. I might even be able to get away with having the ear on the same layer. Do we have an instance of both ears? Yes, we do have both ears. Okay, I take it back. I'll do the ears later. I'm going to colour this shape however I want. Now what I am going to do, because I'm a professional, I'm going to set up a style for this so that I can reuse that style constantly. If I click, I've got my style window open here and I have the advanced setting clicked on. So as a rigger, I always have that open, but here we are, here are all our advanced tabs, and we can use styles new and create a new style for my project. I'll call it RR for Red Riding Hood line, RR line, great. And then I want to apply a brush to it. I've got a lot of brushes that I've bought over the years or made. I want to do something very, very different to what I've already got. So I've got this like clean, thick and thin tapered line. I don't want that. I want something different. So I'm going to make this all nice and bumpy, like so. And I'll stick a lime boil on it on 2s because why not? Okay, and then my colours. Let's go with something like that, and we're going to turn the fill off. I want this line to be able to be applied all the way throughout. I'm going to turn that off as well. Maybe 12 is maybe not thick enough. Maybe you want to go dead fluffy. Do you know what? I don't like the spacing. I'm going to mess with that so it's a bit fuller. Okay, great. Happy, happy, happy. If I played that now, turn off my line test, I'd have a boiling shape. I'm pretty happy with that. And then I need a new style for the skin colour. So turn off all these, call it RR skin, because I can reuse this for the arms, etc. What colour should she be? RR line is applied in style 1. RR skin is applied in style 2. There we go. Hate it. No. Go back to skin. Cartoony, but skinny. Great. Okay. Now I have a head. I'm going to turn this into a mini rig by right-clicking, group with selection. I'll call this head, and then I'm going to right-click and convert that to a bone. I'm going to draw one bone on my head, like that, following a little bit almost the perspective of the head that it's in, because I want to be able to move this as little as possible. Now I'm just going to go through my shot, and yeah, it's definitely on 2s. Okay. This is a very old animation that I can't remember what I've done. Okay, so I'm going to just make a key on frame 1, control click on all the areas of my bone using the transform bone tool. I'm going to change my defaults to smooth and 2s, change this to smooth and 2s, and then I want to see how little I can get away with. Okay, sweet. She stays over there for a wee while. Can I just move this here, rotate it like this on this frame? How little work can I do? That's the game I'm playing with myself. I am going to add squash and stretch to this bone because that is definitely something I have added in animation. Okay. This might not be perfect, but I want to get it as close as I can. And also, remember, my animation might not be perfect, to be fair. I'm just using the arrow keys, the directional arrow keys, to make my way down the timeline. And I'm just moving this frame by frame now, actually. I've dispensed with my own method because this is where she starts moving quite a lot. Could have left that there. There we go. Move this forward. Look at the hair intersecting, so I don't need any skin over this side, which is quite handy. And now it's massive. Now I'll show you what to do when it's massive. She's changing in perspective a little bit. I think she's about to. I'm going to Control F and key everything on that frame. On this frame rather, and then she slams down on an even. Ooh. Cool. And then I'm just going to yeet that off there. We don't need it anymore. So if I watch through that now. Okay. Cool. Little bounce here missing, but that's fine. And the head gets bigger here. So we're going to have to do some work on the vectors now as well. So we've got like two levels of motion really. The bone, that didn't take me too long, is moving. And we have also available to us the vectors that we can also animate as well. So I'm going to go back to a frame where it was working well. Maybe there. And I'm going to Control F. And then I'll use my vector tools to scale this up slightly and see if just scaling it once will get me what I want. And maybe there is a little element here of like just changing the shape ever so slightly. Will this follow? Yes. Looking pretty good. Here I'm going to need a little bit of extra work to bring that more in line with the new perspective. Copy paste this one. A little bounce here. Where does she stay still? There, okay. I'm gonna just select everything and move that up. I could have done that on the bone actually. I definitely left that out. Cool. And now because this has moved, it's like kind of left the original position from the bone. I hate this, but I'm counter animating now. It's naughty. But whatever gets the job done. Cool. There we go. If I turn the line off. Ew. Funny when it's not on what it looks like. Nope, that's my arc. I'm committing to my bad animation. Great. That's the head. Now then, what about the dress? New vector layer. I call it dress. And give myself some points here for the top. She's got nice pointy shoulders at least, and then I know I'm going to need some nice fleshy curvature here. So I'm going to use the curvature tool, just really make sure that that fits with the overall shape here. Now there is some nice squash and stretch going on later. I've already got this style applied, so all we have to do is change the colour and create one for the dress. If I select this, we can see it's got the RR line, Red Riding Hood line, and the RR skin, but we need a new colour. So I'm going to call this RR dress. And take off this and something a bit dirty red, and then apply that. Oh, I love it! I love it! Great. Cool. Now then, what does this shape need to do? Expands a lot. Not much really. That's good. We could create two bones, one for the bottom of the dress and one for the shoulders. The shoulders could track the shoulders, and then the bottom of the dress can be delayed. Maybe we can get away with a little tiny bit more rigging, but not as much. Group dress, maybe, and then right click, convert to bone. I'm not saying this is the perfect way of doing it. I'm saying this is the way I would do it. I don't want them parented, so I'm going to just deselect that and place one down here as well. Now then. They will have strength inherently, so they will already, they're already sort of rigged. Ooh, I already want one in the middle there. Where are the points in the middle? Okay. Okay. Maybe I want an extra bone here for the middle. So I've got top, middle, bottom. I have done absolutely no rigging. All I've drawn is 3 bones. They are not parented because I pressed escape every time I made one. So they will act independently of each other, but at least I've got the top, middle and the bottom covered, and I can hopefully get away with doing as little work as possible. I'm going to add squash and stretch scaling to all these. I just use the bone constraints menu for that, just so that when I do, because I know I'm going to squash and stretch this this middle one and this bottom one for that extra volume when she goes through that. There you go. So maybe I will track the top first, see what I can get away with. So if I control F and key everything there. Hey, my head is moving. Let's fix that so she stays still for the first 4 frames. Good to know. Sometimes when you're trying to get as little work as possible, it might be better actually not using smooth and using stepped keys instead. But we are where we are. I'm just going to move this down. Maybe I will scale it. Maybe I will rotate it. There we go. I've not done the thing I said I was going to do, which was track the shoulders first. Let's do that. I'm not worrying too much about the layering right now. I'm just going to control F there. Just because I want them to stay still as much as possible. There we go. I'm just using the bones to try and get away with as fewer moves as I can. There we go. Something like that. It's the key on everything there. Cool. Swoop. Squish this down. Spawns are quite easy to rotate by accident. I just watch for that and I don't get stressed about it. No worries. Like I need a bit more width at the top here, so I'm just going to scale that down. That's why we added squash and stretch scaling. I want as fewer moves as I can get away with. You might be thinking, what is the power then? Why is this faster? It's not faster for sure, but it does give us a lot of fancy options later by having these bones, and I'll show you what I mean. But we can once these bones are set up and animated and following my artwork nicely, I can add whatever I want to these bones. I can add texture, shadows, lighting, more animation, and they will follow the path of these bones, and that is where it becomes really, really handy. And I am often so glad I did a tiny bit of rigging, especially for lighting. Like, what if the feedback for this completely awesome project was, thanks, we hate it. Where's the sunlight? And I'm not animating shadows by hand, man. Nah. And now there is obviously loads of handy tricks you can do in After Effects where you just add a rim light. You can add a rim light in Moho as well, but it looks horrible to me that now because it's everywhere, especially when it comes in over a piece of artwork that you're thinking that's just that After Effects effect and absolutely not a real light whatsoever. Ooh, keep forgetting about my cheeky 3. Okay, there we go. Changes shape quite a lot here. Maybe rotate this. So we have rotate, we have scale, we have placement. We've got a lot of tools in our arsenal now because we created these bones without going onto the vectors. Maybe we could have done that with the head by parenting the points to the bones themselves. Maybe we could, maybe we didn't. Maybe it doesn't matter. Whatever gets the job done. Okay, and then she jumps right off screen. Easy, easy, easy. Just going to yeet this. Scale this up, roll this round. Now we might have to do a vector tweak, which I'm pretty happy with that has only come up now, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stop faffing. Select all these bones now. T and yeet. Great, no need. Let's watch that through. Okay, there's a little bit here where we didn't do this middle bone. No probs. No probs. Sweet. So I want to try and get the shapes like to where they're heading rather than working through it frame by frame, usually. Depends on the animation, of course. But I do want to try and do it in as few moves as I can. This is very straight up through this bit, so maybe we straighten this up. No, that's not gonna work. It looked better before. Need that little curve in there. Remember, I can still do vector tweaks. I'm not going to cry about this. Just need to make sure it's covering the broad strokes. Broad strokes first. Yay! So if I Control J to see what I'm doing, line test, blah blah blah. Maybe we put the dress below the head now. Cool. Line test back on. So I'm going to do that same process. I'll speed this up so it's not the longest video in the world. But you can still see how I would approach all these other fiddly little bits. I mean, she has a tiny little neck here. Easy, easy. This little cape bit for her shoulders. What would you do, Danny? I will show you, don't worry. These bits are going to be really easy. They're totally fudgeable. I'll show you how to do that with the magnet tool later. But yeah, I will go through and fill in the rest of these cool bits. I'm just going to finesse some of this with the magnet tool. nice and handy for those big broad strokes again. Like the bone is driving where I want the arm to be, but there are some volume changes here that I just want to slam in using the magnet tool. And I'm going to call this my ropey animation, that this arm changes volume quite a lot. But that's the charm, right? Okay, so Control F here, and then on this one it gets a lot skinnier. Just going to push these back in place. And there we go. I'm just going to duplicate this, call it arm 2 upper, and delete all the animation from it. So clear animation from layer and sublayers, yes please. And then I will place this one over here. Easy. I'm just going to put auto freeze keys on when I'm doing my vector tweaks. What that does, it'll just put a key on every channel for every element. Really good for your first block for bones and stuff. I just want to make sure that I can stop pressing Control F every time I make a change, especially when I'm doing this vector tweak now. So if you see, it is keying absolutely everything. If I only move one point, it will key all the points. And I'm just going to use the magnet tool to fluff my way through this little vector tweaks where it changes volume. Okay, I've just made a piece of artwork for the hair. It's a little bit more complicated than the rest of the performance. What I will do is I will drag this layer into the head and see if we get any free motion out of that. Okay, great. I mean, I'm not going to say no to free motion. So if I drag that to the top and then just where it flips, maybe I just solve that and it will follow the head nicely. So we've got a couple of frames for free here. Maybe not there. We can solve that with the magnet tool though. So now there we need a bit of a vector flip. So I'm going to drag all these points here and flip them and move them back into a better position. Now I might need to use the magnet tool here, make it really big. My animation is very inconsistent. I can tell already. Just going to try and get that as best I can. Using the magnet tool. And then with any luck, this will work enough and I just have to do like the secondary. Maybe I press T, and if I want to finesse it a little bit more, I can use that. There we go. Control P there. Control P there. Just to peak my points where they intersect. Okay, great. There we go. Piece of hair. So if I copy the frame 0 key from here to here, so we can see what it looked like before, and then we've got it on that side, and it's following the head already. Yay! Cool. Where does it change? Changes there. So I'm going to Control F, and then here I will use the magnet tool. I will put it on really high and a nice drag from there, like so. I feel like it doesn't even need to match my animation. It's probably better. I've animated that many years ago. Ah, crap. Hang on 1 sec. I have got too many keys. This can be unstepped, so I don't want any motion in between these two. Maybe I could, but I don't want it. Okay. Cool. Where does it settle? Give me a cheeky frame over here like this. So what's great about this is I can make some decisions for the better here. Like, it might not be working perfectly in the line test, so I can change my mind. I'm going to use some onion skinning now just to check back to where that is coming from. Yeah, like that. Nice bit of drag. Keep these rounded. And I'm going to just drag the whole piece here now. Just make a big bold stroke like this, and then magnet tool it into place. Maybe even more drag. It's absolutely totally changed in volume here. Who even knows what's going on? Magnet tool can't change absolutely everything, so sometimes I might need to come in here and just finesse these curves, especially if I want something nice and round. But for the big bold strokes, I am happy to use it. Like what's happening there, because it's meant to be swinging down. Okay. Right, I need a shape that's more like the first stage, So I'm just going to copy paste frame 0, flip it, and then mess with it from there. So I'm going to take a position that's already working, and that is another power of vectors at least. There we go. And if cool. There we go. Now then, does that tween from there to there nicely? Nope. Where does it stop settling? There we go. Bye. There we go. There we go, made an ear. That's in the head, so let's see what we can get away with. pigtail next. I'm going to do it inside the head layer again. Pigtail 1. And I'm going to copy these vectors onto my pigtail and delete all the animation from them. And you guessed it, magnet tool that shit. just popping in here to say that I have grouped all my layers and I've double clicked on my group. I've called it layer order and I've enabled animated layer order in these options so that I can animate the layer order for this particular patch. So the arm needs to be in front for most of the shot, but then here it needs to pop behind the head. So arm to lower, I'm just going to pull that below the head, see if that'll give me enough. And what that will do on this group, then it will create that key there. So it's only keying the layer order where I want it to. I just wanted to pop on and really quickly say that that's the only new thing I've done recently since I last spoke to you. I've just continued as I'm going, creating artwork, creating a bone, trying to get as much movement out of the bone as possible, vector tweaking, and it has taken me 1 hour 40 minutes so far to do this. I might do the basket next, so let's continue. Okay, I am at the 2 hour mark now, and I was thinking I will tackle the hands. And what's handy about some of the ways I've done this is that at least I can use this bone now that's tracking the movement of the arm, but I think I will have a frame by frame layer for the hands so I can create all the different shapes I need out on the timeline. I think that'll be the fastest way of doing it. Quite a lot of them are moving holds, like over here, so I'll get away with them. I'll get away with quite a lot of the motion because the arm is already animated. But that's my plan anyway. I'm just thinking through this out loud and making a plan. And then same, but the face. I think I will do that frame by frame as well. So I can draw the poses that I need, but I can parent that frame by frame to the head bone that I already have working. So that should be quite an easier task because I've set this up with a few bones. So let's do that. Right, so it's literally just the face now that I need to do. So I'll do that frame by frame, parented to the head, just like the hands. Frame by frame is kind of fun actually. I quite like it. I don't know if you can tell this, but I'm drawing with a mouse. Don't ask me why. I have to. This is all set up for my rigging course. I cannot faff with changing it around for my pen because I need to be on the other side of the desk. I won't bore you further than that, but I am using a mouse, so if you think my lines look a little bit wobbly, that will be why. But Moho's really forgiving, as we well know. Okay, so I'm just parenting that to that bone there using the layer bind tool. Just so it's definitely going to follow exact, so I don't get any weird stretching and what have you. Okay, and then frame by frame layers work really simply. We only have 3 new buttons here in Moho. One is plus a frame, so add a new frame, minus a frame, delete the frame, and duplicate the frame. Nice and easy. And she's got dot eyes. Of course she does. I drew it. I don't love hand-drawn animation. I love looking at it. I am not the strongest. I'll just say that. Right. Let's get on with it. Now then, if there are some things that still have like a little intersecting line that you don't like, we could make a patch for that and parent it to something helpful. So here, for example, we could add a little skin patch that would just block out that line there. We don't have a way of hiding the line because there isn't extra points, and I didn't add that in just because I'm a big fan of a patch. I would rather patch it. So if I just make a tiny skin patch so it's in her skin colour. I've got an override on. There we go, skin, and I don't want any stroke. And what I want to do is layer bind that to this arm. And then I've done that on the wrong layer. I'm going to just cut that from this layer, add a new layer, call it patch, and layer bind that to the arm there. Just tick that animation off it for now. And then on frame 1, set the position of this. There is a bit of scale on my arm, so we can see that it's a little bit skew with, and I want like a little nub in there. That's quite nice. I tell you what I will do, I'm going to put the stroke back on, Q to select shape, give it a stroke, but override the colour of the, hey, oh yeah, override the colour of that, just so that we still got this like nice little blend and we don't get any harsh lines, any vectory lines. I don't want a vector line. I don't want anything harsh. So I just have to go through this and correct it. It's following the bone, so it might be mostly fine. But like I said, the bone is squashed and stretching now. We might just need a little extra care. I'm just going to go through frame by frame. And counter animate what's happening here in the corner. Just gonna peak that so the Beziers don't drive me insane. Don't need it here. Whoops. So we could yeet that off screen and then we need it back here. Big fan of yeeting things off screen. As if you can't tell. Actually, don't mind the lines here. And there we want a line. Let's see when we need it back. What is annoying about this method now, because I've parented it to the arm, and the arm is animating. When I yeet it off screen, it is moving. That's okay. I know what's causing it. I choose not to get angry. Just going to keep going. There we go. We could add some lighting now that we have this all cleaned up and looking like we want it to. And what I love about this method is now I have a fresh new line. If that was a rough, it has taken me 2 hours. 2 hours and 5 minutes, I think. Let me check my recording. 2 hours to clean this up from a rough, with a line, with some boil, with all the colours, with a few bones that then are going to help me later on if I wanted to add some lighting, for example. I could then just parent it into this head. Like we've been doing that. Once the bone has been animated, we can just crack on. What else I could do to this to mess things up a little bit, I can, because I've got RR line applied to my entire character, all I have to do is mess with the settings in here and it will change all my animation. I can look really, really bubbly. I can change the brush entirely. Find something nicer about one of these. Or not, you know. I could play with brushes for a million years. Each one different than the last. Cool. Yeah. Where was that splatty one? I like this splatty one, but it does need some work. Let's pull the spacing up, pull this right down, pull this right up. Might be too much, too much. Okay. I'm freaking out. I've ruined it. I've ruined it. This one. Spacing. Line boil, remember. 1, 2s. Lovely, lovely. Ooh, sketchy. Bit of angle drift. Yeah, what about that? What about that, eh? I'm a big fan of free lines. Defo. Alright, okay. Blind boil, twos. Yep, love it all. Bring this down maybe. Make that really blobby. Oh, is it too blobby? Okay, maybe up the blob. Too much. Bring this one back down. Okay. And then my animation is updated. I love that. Yes, okay. So that's a lot better. I like the look of that. Also what I could do is I can filter my layers tab here and search for kind contains. If I just start writing the word vector, it will find all my vectors, and those are including all the hand-drawn layers, the new frames that I've drawn. I can select all of these in one file swoop, click these three dots here, and we can add further vector noise. Now, noisy outlines, noisy fills, animated noise, ramp this up and ramp this way up, and it will add this to our entire project, anything that's a vector basically. Let's pull this a little bit down, and it will just give that a little bit more noise as well. So that's okay, so that change a little bit, so it does maintain a hand-drawn feel. We just deselect everything I have here, no filter. Why is my hand flipped? There we go. Actually, I can't bear this elbow. I can't bear this elbow here. Let's just, if we can't bear it, like, if I can't bear it, you can't bear it, I'm sure. Cool. And I do think the animation's better as well because I did some better in-betweens on the hair and stuff. I could rough those up a little bit. They're looking a little bit vectory, especially the pigtails. I could still rough those further up by messing around with the vector points whenever I want, instead of redrawing them. So there is time saved. I don't know how long it took me to clean up and colour when I did this original shot. It was a long time ago. I'm not the strongest cleanup artist, so I would always try... I would always try and find a cheeky workaround, and I think Moho works well for me. This is a very complicated scene. Well, it's not, but like in terms of your first Moho cleanup, this might feel more complicated. I wanted to do something that was like not just a children's TV character and had multiple elements, so you could see intersections and how I would deal with like skinny little arms, hands, multiple pieces of hair. So this might have felt a bit chaotic to watch through, I'm not sure. It felt a little bit chaotic to work through. It totally depends on what needs to happen. I just wanted to show you maybe how I would do that. If I had planned to clean up in Moho in the first place, maybe I would have made different choices in the line test, or maybe not. It completely depends. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. I'm just answering a question from one of my students who asked, because they're from a different software, they thought that they would just be able to colour their line using the paint bucket tool. And it doesn't quite work like that in Moho. Even if the line was Moho native, it depends how the shapes were made. It really needs a little bit more thinking about. But once you've figured out really simple rigging, like just adding some bones to a vector layer and using those bones to get you very far down the tracks, like do those big bold movements on bonds, then you can save time and add loads of nice stuff later and have the boil and have the vector noise, and we can add texture to this now that we've got those bones in place. So I wanted to show you what that would look like for a more complicated scene, and I hope that was helpful. I was doing Moho demos on this at Annecy for Moho themselves, and we used a horse run cycle, and I was doing a cleanup process, and the horse run cycle, funnily enough, ended up being a little bit easier because they never changed out of like one axis, so the horse was just side on and running, and it took me like 10 minutes just to make some separate pieces, make a couple of bonds, The bones were just acting as the torso and the butt, and I got loads of motion, loads of easy cleanup out of that just because of how simple that was. I wanted to show you something a little bit more complicated because that's the first thing you're going to want to know. What do I do when it's not a horse on the side, Danny? What do I do when it's more complicated? What do I do when it's hands? What do I do when it's got hair and intersections and a cloak, for God's sake? I would want to know those things too. So I wanted to give you that. Cool. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you have any other ideas for things that you want to see in Moho. Let me know if you have any cleanup adventures. I'm happy to revise my method. Always, always, I am keeping everything up for review. There is no right or wrong way with Moho. Moho is quite a new tool for this kind of stuff, and the right way is the way that you find on your project. Cool. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks very much. This took ages to make and probably will take ages to edit, but it was fun. I had a nice cup of coffee. I started really early in the morning. Yeah, it was lovely. And I will catch you in the next Moho tutorial. Bye!